Kia ora guys, welcome back to the Black Jersey. I'm Max and I'm the channel host, and today's video is going to be about a very exciting topic in all-time Six Nations 15. It is only 7 days away from the Six Nations, and by vote I'm going to be covering the England versus Scotland fixture in round 1. Make sure you can vote for the other matches you want me to cover as well. So far these are the matches that I'm keen to cover in the Six Nations, just so I can expand my audience a wee bit. Now, my criteria for an all-time Six Nations 15, obviously you have to have played in the Six Nations at some stage throughout your career. I've tried to pick players from a wide range of periods of time, though I haven't just gone for the Six Nations which began in 2000. I've tried to pick a lot of players from before the professional era started, back when rugby was 100% amateur, because there are some pretty amazing feats that players were able to achieve back in that era. Another thing I want to say to you guys as well, I'm not picking everything based on one match wonders like Johnny Wilkinson in the 2003 World Cup. That's all Wilkinson's really remembered for, so I did not consider him for this video. Sorry to annoy the heck out of the English fans who are watching. So basically I wanted to pick the team based on how consistent they were throughout their career and how much they were able to deliver for their teams throughout their playing careers. Now, the first player I've selected is Loosehead Prop, of course. I've chosen to go with Marco Vunipola, who has only just recently finished his international career. It went from 2012 to 2021, and he played 76 test caps, including 67 for England. He went on 3 British and Irish Lions tours, 2013, 2017, and 2021, playing in all 3 tests of those 3 series. Vunipola was also a 3-time Six Nations winner, 2016, 2017 and 2020, and of course 2016, who could ever forget that, England had a Grand Slam. Something I really liked about Vunipola is that although he looks tired a lot of the time, he just carried on, he kept on playing until the coach finally subbed him around 70 minutes. Vunipola won a total of 17 team trophies, including the Triple Crown, for example, throughout his time playing in the Six Nations, and he also did, believe it or not, get 2 test tries. Low centre of gravity on Marco Vunipola made him very hard to tackle, and my honourable mention for Loosehead Prop, of course, goes to none other than Gethin Jenkins. The hooker I'm picking is going to be Keith Wood, who played for Ireland from 1994 to 2003. He was a captain for Ireland for a long time, and he finished his career up with 63 test caps. 58 of those were for Ireland. Keith Wood was the inaugural winner of World Rugby Player of the Year back in 2001. Back then it was known as the IRB, Rugby Player of the Year or something like that though. Keith Wood is the former record holder by the most tries by a hooker. That record has since been broken by Dane Coles, but even though he was a hooker, he did score quite a few tries. He's the only player in this video that never won a Six Nations title, but he was able to win 6 trophies throughout his competitions in the Six Nations in his career. He was basically just a running hooker that threw really well and a very inspirational captain for Ireland. There's still videos of him around now, make sure to go check them out. My number 3 is none other than Jason Leonard, who remains today England's most capped ever player rather. So he played from 1990 to 2004, and he managed to get 119 tests, 5 of which of course were for the British and Irish Lions. He was a 7-time Six Nations winner. As you can see, England were just dominant throughout Leonard's career, and that includes goodness me, 4 Grand Slams won. Just had to check my notes again, double check that one. So yes, 34 team trophies won as well, including the Triple Crown across his career in the Six Nations. He did win the 2003 Rugby World Cup as well. Having a great tight head prop to anchor your scrum towards a World Cup is one of the most crucial game plan that you've got to get right, I guess. Jason Leonard did also score just one career try, and he went on 3 Lions tours. Most of you will probably know him as the guy who was the tour manager for the British and Irish Lions in 2021, but he also, as I've just told you, had an absolutely astounding career. This number 3 jersey was probably one of the few that was pretty much unreachable for other players, whereas for the number 2 jersey we have honourable mentions such as Guillem Guirado and Rory Best. Now over to the locks. I'm picking my number 4 to be a person who played a very long time ago. He is still alive today. His name is Willie John McBride, and he played from 1962 all the way to 1975, back when my father was still in primary school. Willie John McBride, for New Zealanders who are watching, think of him as an Irish Colin Meads is a suggestion I have for you. If there's one person who was really able to bring Irish rugby to the spotlight, I'd probably put it on Willie John McBride. There isn't a lot of footage of him still remaining from his playing days, but if there's still footage, you know they were pretty darn good from playing back then. Willie John McBride is still the most capped ever British and Irish Lions. He finished his career with 80 test caps, 63 of those were for Ireland, so he in the process became the first player to reach 60, 70 and 80 test caps. So yeah, seconds to reach 50 after Sir Colin Meads, God rest his soul. Man, Willie John McBride did win some trophies as well. He won the Six Nations twice in 1973 and 1974, just the year before his retirement. He was able to go on a staggering 5 Lions tours, and he did get 2 tries in his career. From what I can gather, he was very tough as nails. He was a hard running lock, and he was a really kind of follow me type leader. That is why there is still somehow footage of this guy today. If there is still footage of a player from back in that era, that's saying something to me, because I was born, you see, in 1999. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch him, so this is what I've had to go off. My number 5 is another one of the jerseys that was not really having that much competition. I had to go with Alan Wynne-Jones. He debuted all the way back in 2006. Today, the guy is still playing. He's got 161 test caps, 149 for Wales. He's the first player in test rugby to break the barrier of 150 and of course 160 when he overtook Richie McCaw, who has 148 for the All Blacks. Jones is the most capped player of all time, that means, and he's also played the most tests as the Welsh captain with 52 tests as captain. He was the 5-time Six Nations winner as well. 2008, 2012, 2013, 2019 and 2021. 3 of those were Grand Slams. Don't forget the Grand Slams team. Jones did win 14 team trophies throughout his career as well. Although he hasn't been selected initially for this Six Nations, don't be surprised to see him come back at some stage during it when he recovers from his wee shoulder injury. Jones was the 2019 player of the tournament. He has scored 9 test tries, the last of which he scored back in 2016. I'm sure he'll just get like one more or something before he retires, though. He is still active at test level. Jones was also a nominee for World Rugby Player of the Year in both 2015 and 2019. He's the only Welsh player to be nominated for the award twice, and if I could sum up his career in some sentence, it would be that he's an intelligent line-out thrower, and he makes good calls as the Welsh captain. My number 6 is Terry Dusatois. He's an Openside Flanker, but he was more than happy to play in both jerseys. Quite a few good players I'm missing out here, for example, Peter O'Mahony and Neil Beck, who was an Openside that played 6 and 7. Dusatois started off in 2006, the same year as Jones, but he retired all the way back in 2015, and he had a very successful career, amassing 80 test caps. He also played the most most tests as the French captain with 56, so he is the record holder for most as captain. Dusatois did score just 6 career tries, but he did tend to score them at very good times, such as the 2011 World Cup final. Dusatois was the man of the match in the 07 quarterfinals against us. Not only did he score a try in the first half, but I believe he still holds the record to this day for most test tackles in a game. He made 38 that day. So yeah, most individual tackles in a test is that record, for example. 2010, they did get a Grand Slam, but that was the only time we won the Six Nations. The trophy that Italy and France compete for, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but they did win that 7 times with Dusatois' career. He was World Rugby's Player of the Year in 2011, and if I can say anything about the guy, determined player, great leader. He went from the rookie, starring in 07, to the captain in 2011, and he was able to keep on being captain up until 2015 when we absolutely demolished them in that quarterfinal. Squidge Rugby is going to be very happy with my number 7. It's Sam Warburton, and he played from 2009 to 2017. He was just 29 years old when he retired due to a neck and back injury, but he still achieved a lot in his career. I believe he is the second to youngest captain Wales has ever had. He was 22 when he became the skipper for Wales. He played 79 tests, so 5 for the British and Irish Lions. Both times he went on a Lions tour, he was indeed the captain. Good on him. Warburton has the second to most tests as the Welsh captain with 49. In 2012 and 2013, they won the Six Nations. 2012 was, of course, rather a Grand Slam. Yay, Wales in 2012. I don't think they're doing that 10 years later, though. Warburton did score 5 test tries again, sorry. My notes here, and excellent body position over the rucks, I think. Like, look, a lot of people give him stick for not being much of a carrying 7, but I think that whenever he was on the field and came off, the absence of Warburton was very noticeable. For example, when he went off with an injury, the guy was just able to read the game so well. He was a master of the breakdown, seconds to only Richie McCaw. My number 8, Sebastien Chabal, a very famous French player who amassed 62 tests from 2000 to 2011. Chabal was a 6 times Six Nations winner, 5 times, sorry. 2002, 2004, 2006, 2007, 2010. He won a lot of those trophies during his career. Chabal was a very marketable player as well. They started off the whole Chabal mania thing in France, and I think that it's because of him that the whole utility forward idea was born. He was a number 8 that could play lock and blindside flanker as well. He did get the Garibaldi trophy, I think that's how you say it, 4 times against Italy, whereas 3 of his Six Nations wins were Grand Slams too. The guy was probably one of the hardest ever hitters in the game. It sends shivers down my spine every time I see a video of him making a tackle. He was absolutely brilliant, Sebastien Chabal. My number 9, Sir Gareth Edwards, one of the stars of Welsh rugby back in its amateur era. Quite a lot of caps as well for a guy in that day. He amassed 63 test caps, 53 with Wales. So he became only the 3rd player to reach 50 tests after McBride and Meads. Gareth Edwards was the 2nd player, of course, to reach 60 tests as well. He first captained Wales aged 20, and he played from 1967 to 1978. Edwards was a 6 times Six Nations winner. It was the 5 Nations back in those days, of course, though. He was able to win it in 1969, 71, 73, 75, 76, and 78. He was just a trophy-winning machine, Sir Gareth Edwards. 3 of those were Grand Slams. He was a 5 times Triple Crown winner. He went on 3 Lions tours. The guy was also the scorer of the Barbarians' greatest ever try. It was a complete stunner from back in the 70s, and this guy had a lot of pace. The guy had a lot of flair in his play and excellent ball handling. As I said, I wasn't going to consider Johnny Wilkinson for this video. people just think of that one particular thing a bit too much for my liking. Whereas Owen Farrell, who became the England first five after Wilkinson's retirement, has been a bit more consistent throughout his career. Farrell's played ever since 2012 and he's got 100 test caps, 94 of which are for England. If he recovers from the injury that's ruled him out for the 2022 Six Nations, expect him to be only the third ever English player to reach 100 for England. Farrell is the fifth to most on England's all-time caps list. He's got the fifth to most points in the history of Test rugby with 1,070 Test points, a point scoring machine, and if he recovers from this ankle injury, I think he's absolutely going to overtake Wilkinson, probably just a bridge too far to get to Carter's record though. Farrell has won the Six Nations 3 times, 2016, 17 and 2020, and 2016, of course, as I mentioned with Marco Vunipola, was a Grand Slam. Farrell has won 16 team trophies throughout the Six Nations, including the Triple Crown back in 2020. Farrell has gone on 3 Lions tours, and he's got 10 test tries, not a crazy high try scoring rate, but it's good enough, I guess. He was also a nominee for World Rugby Player of the Year back in his rookie season of 2012, also backing it up in 2016 and 2017. No idea how he did not win back in 2016. The guy was Mr. Consistent in my opinion, and I think he'll keep playing well if he comes back from injury. He has the best tackling technique I've ever seen from a first five, controversial to say. Everyone seems to hate him just because 2 games in a row in 2018 he had a bit of controversy rather. I think though Farrell is hated for the same reasons as Richie McCaw. It's because he's his nation's greatest ever player. At number 11, I have a man who played Test rugby 100 years ago. His name is Cyril Lowe. His nickname was Kit. He played from 1913 to 1923. Although he only played 25 tests, that was quite a good amount for back in those days. The guy was a 5 times 5 Nations winner. That was its title back in the day before Italy joined in 2000. He won in 1913, 14, 1920, 1921 and 1923, and 4 of those occasions it was a Grand Slam for England, as you can see on screen. Cyril Lowe did win 10 trophies throughout his career in the 5 Nations, including the Triple Crown and Calcutta Cup, that's who England competes with Scotland for. 18 test tries as well. That was probably the main selling point for me, because 18 test tries from 25 tests back in that day, what an achievement. He held that record for England for a very long time as well. Perhaps most impressive about it is that he actually got recalls to the England rugby side after World War I. How inspirational, fighting for his country, then coming back and playing rugby for that same country. In the 1914 Six Nations, he did get 8 tries. That is the record for most in a single 5 Nations/Six Nations series. And he held the record as England's highest ever try scorer for 66 years after his retirement. His death was 6 years before the record was finally broken by Rory Underwood, my honourable mention for the 11 jersey. 66 years to hold a nation's highest ever try scoring record. That's a very long time, and you've got to give it up to this man who was a player back in the 1910s and 1920s. My number 12 is a far more modern player, Philippe Sellard from France. Although he did play up until 95 when the game was about to go professional, he played from 1982 to 1995, and he amassed 111 test caps, something very unheard of back in the day, because he was indeed the first test rugby player to reach 100 test caps. He still is France's second to most capped ever player today, and he was the 6 times 5 Nations winner. He won in 1983, 86, 87, 88, 89 and 93. a very good trophy record. 1987 was a Grand Slam for France, and Philippe Solar did get 30 test tries, so he's still quite high up there on the list today. Philippe Solar is still 4th on France's record for most tries scored, and in his career, I think it was the best ever example of French flair. The guy knew how to run the ball. He was always having it in both of his hands. You didn't know where he was going to pass it. The guy was very classy and a great entertainer for his day. The best 12 in 5 Nations / 6 Nations history for sure. And at 13 to partner him, I've gone with Brian O'Driscoll, the Irish maestro. I was never going to pick anybody else for this jersey. O'Driscoll played an incredible 15 years of Test rugby from 1999 all the way to 2014, and he amassed 142 Test caps. 133 of those were for Ireland. O'Driscoll played 83 tests as the Irish captain too, and so that's their record for most as captain. He was the first player to reach 80 tests as a captain as well. Richie McCaw and Sergio Parisse have since overtaken him though. Ireland's most capped ever player still. He is 3rd, I believe, today. No, sorry, he's 4th. Parisse overtook him there as well. First player to reach 140 tests. He won the Six Nations twice in 2009 and 2014. 2009, it was a Grand Slam for the Irish. Brian O'Driscoll won a total of 24 team trophies throughout his Six Nations career, including the Millennium Trophy. O'Driscoll was the Six Nations player of the tournament a record 3 times as well: 2006, 2007, 2009, 4 Lions tours too, including the ill-fated 05 one where he was the captain and he had that spear tackle happen to him. He scored 47 test tries, so that's the most ever for Ireland. Just one of those was scored for the Lions. O'Driscoll is, of course, as I said, Ireland's highest ever try scorer, and he was a nominee for World Rugby Player of the Year 3 times, the most ever for an Irish player. I think he just had an all-round game, great passing, great kicking. He was always pulling these crazy stunts that people just got out of their seats for. He could defend hard too, he could pass brilliantly, and he had a lot of pace to burn. This guy, in my humble opinion, even though I'm a Kiwi who supports McCaw and Lomu, I think O'Driscoll is the greatest ever rugby player. My number 14 is also a player who played a very long time ago. It's Ian Smith, who is Scottish, and he played from 1924 to 1933. He played 34 test caps, and 2 of those were for the British and Irish Lions. In his first ever season of test rugby, he went on the 1924 Lions tour. The guy was a 5-time Six Nations winner in 25, 26, 27, 29, and his final year of test rugby, 1933. 1925 was a Grand Slam for Scotland, and it was also their first ever Grand Slam. So that's saying something, you know. He also won a total of 9 trophies in the 5 Nations and 24 test tries too. This is a pretty big talking point for him. All of them were scored in the 5 Nations, and he had the record for most tries in test rugby. This was not broken until David Campese in the 1980s. Then, the most test tries in the Six Nations. This record was not broken until 2011 by Brian O'Driscoll. Then, in 2021, up until last year, he was still the highest ever try scorer for Scotland, although jointly by this point. Stuart Hogg in 2021 overtook his record as the highest try scoring Scottish player 88 years after his retirement. Something absolutely incredible. All 3 of these records stood after his death. Well after it. He passed away in 1972, aged 68. These try-scoring records are just crazy amazing. There is no footage of him around, but with a try-scoring record like that, how could I not include this player, Ian Smith, in my all-time 5/6 Nations 15? An incredible record for an amateur player. Now, my final player in the list. I mentioned Stuart Hogg before, but I was never going to go with anybody else apart from Gavin Hastings, a real hero of Scottish rugby, probably the most important figure of their last greatest era, I guess. Like the 1990s, 1980s Scottish team, far better than what Scotland is today. Scotland are struggling quite a lot in the 2020s, especially with how competitive everyone else has got, and the fact that Scotland only has 2 professional teams. Gavin Hastings played from 1986 till 1995. His son Adam plays for Scotland today. 67 test caps, 61 were for Scotland. Gavin Hastings was a 2-time Six Nations winner as well in 1986 and 1990. The guy did get the Grand Slam in 1990 as well. Scotland have not won a Grand Slam since then. Crazy stuff, I know. He won 9 team trophies throughout his career in the Six Nations as well. That's including a Triple Crown, 2 Lions tours. He was captain of 1993. The All Blacks beat them though, so let's go. Gavin Hastings also is Scotland's 3rd to highest ever points scorer, and he's their 6th to top try scorer. You can see all of his achievements up over here. And yeah, the most important figure of, Scotland's last great era, as I said. So yeah, guys, after constant talking for a very long time, I now present to you my all-time Six Nations 15. This video is airing just 7 days before the Six Nations starts. I'm totally pumped for it to get underway. I can't wait. A big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Please follow the Black Jersey over on Instagram, join our Discord server, and if you're ever keen to be another donor, you can go to PayPal in the description below, or you can sign up to Subscribestar or Patreon, which I mentioned before. Thank you for coming to watch this video, guys. Please like the video, comment on it. Make sure you include in your comment your all-time Six Nations 15. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. Thank you for watching. Once again, see you guys.